Summer is here. Let's take a look at NASCAR's playoff standings, which now, at least for the time being, no longer include Kyle Larson. Oh, and it's a new week, which means new power rankings. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Monday. If you missed it, last night I posted my post-Gateway race recap, analysis, reaction. You can check it out right here or by clicking the top link down in the description below. One thing I didn't cover in that episode, though, are the points. Yeah, it's June. We're just a few short months away from the start of the NASCAR playoffs, so why don't we take a look at how things are shaping up? I tried to keep things organized. All the way on the far left side of the screen, you can see the regular season standings. And then right here in the middle is the current playoff grid, not including playoff points that will be given out for top regular season finishers. I know it's confusing. Bear with me. This is the best we can do at this moment. And you may also notice those asterisks next to Kyle Larson's name. Believe me, we will get to that in just a moment. But for the sake of clarity, I'm going to assume he's still playoff eligible, even though NASCAR has not yet granted him a waiver. What names jump out to you? First and foremost, I see Ty Gibbs, plus 107 points above the cut line. That is extremely impressive. We talk all the time about sophomore slumps. Gibbs missed the playoffs last season. This year, his spot is all but secure. 5 drivers between himself and the cut line. He's nearly 50 points ahead of 12th. Ty Gibbs has an average finish this year of 11.9. That's extremely impressive. Even more impressive when you remember this kid is 21 years old. Some other names I noticed closer to the bubble. Ryan Blaney, the defending series champion, is only 47 points to the good. And he's been going through it. It's been well documented. Hasn't been able to win this year, just keeps running into trouble. Ran out of gas yesterday at Gateway. Off the top of my head, he hit the wall at Charlotte, finished last, got wrecked at Texas. In the last 7 races, Ryan Blaney has more finishes outside of the top 30 than he does finishes inside of the top 20. That is not good. But you have to imagine the results are going to improve, right? They can't get much worse. Another driver down there, only 10 points above the cut line, is Chris Buescher. Yeah, now those finishes at Darlington and Kansas really loom large. Luckily, as you can see on the side here, his teammate Brad Keselowski seems to have found something. The 6 is very consistent. Maybe that's something the 17 can lean on. I'm not used to seeing such disparity between the two RFK cars. Since Brad Keselowski joined that team, the 6 and the 17 are usually not separated by more than a couple of spots. Hopefully Chris Buescher, who made the round of 8 last year, is able to turn things around. Hey, Sonoma road course this weekend could be a great opportunity. And finally, a couple of big names. 2 two-time Cup Series champions currently find themselves below the playoff cut line. I'm talking about Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. Joey Logano has been a mystery this year. He only has 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Shoot, Noah Gragson, driving for a dying Stewart-Haas team, has 5 top 10s. Logano did win the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, and they were really fast at Gateway this past weekend, top 5 for the 22, so maybe Penske has a type. Shorter, flat ovals, maybe that's their strength. Hey, Iowa Speedway coming up in a couple of weeks, New Hampshire just after that. Maybe Logano can continue to make up some points and jump inside the cut line, maybe even get a win here before long. The outlook for Kyle Busch, however, is not quite as optimistic. It's clear Richard Childress Racing does not have the same speed, performance, execution they had last year. The first month of the season, Kyle Busch's pit crew couldn't get out of their own way. But since then, the driver is making a lot of mistakes. I think he's letting his emotions get the best of him. North Wilkesboro, Gateway yesterday. Kyle Busch is still a phenomenal race car driver. He just needs to stay focused. He's a veteran, a future Hall of Famer. He needs to be able to handle this adversity and help lead this team out of the dark hole they're in into the light. He's capable of it. He can do it. When Kyle Busch is upset, angry, when he's driving mad, he's scary. When Kyle Busch is motivated, he is still one of the best in the business. We need to see motivated Kyle Busch here over the next few weeks to dig themselves out of this hole. It's not over yet, just doesn't look great. But there you go, a good look at the playoff grid, the regular season standings as they currently run. I'm going to try to do this most weeks now between today and the start of the playoffs. Let's circle back though and talk about those asterisks next to Kyle Larson's name. I believe this weekend was the first time since playoffs and playoff waivers became a thing that a driver ran a race without knowing if he was playoff eligible. I know this topic has been beaten into the ground the past week, but I still get dozens of comments a day. And as long as NASCAR prolongs things, this is a huge story. A championship contender's season hangs in the balance. Reporter Jeff Gluck posted on social media last night after the race that Kyle Larson is now shown with 0 playoff points on NASCAR's official points report. So that means, as of right now, Kyle Larson is not playoff eligible. Now that could change if NASCAR grants him a waiver, but they sure are taking their sweet time making a decision. Gluck went into more detail on his podcast, The Teardown, last night. I'll link the full episode down below. Play this short clip.
There's factually, unquestionably, people within NASCAR in the competition department that are against the waiver for Kyle Larson, and discussions are still going on. That is why we do not know. It's not because, they're just making it dramatic. They are weighing whether to actually do this or not.
Yeah. I will go back to what I've been saying all week. NASCAR has every right not to grant Kyle Larson a waiver. He chose to miss the start of one of NASCAR's biggest races. Per the rulebook, NASCAR has the right to strip him of his playoff eligibility. But NASCAR also has the right, per their own rulebook, to make an exception. You must start all races unless otherwise authorized by NASCAR. Now, did NASCAR authorize Kyle Larson to miss the Coca-Cola 600 in favor of the Indy 500? No, I highly doubt it. I'm sure NASCAR believed, because Larson and Hendrick had indicated all week long, that Larson would choose Charlotte over Indy if weather became a factor. He did not. Instead, seemingly at the last minute, Larson and Hendrick chose Indy over NASCAR. I completely understand why that would upset NASCAR. They should be upset. They have every right. But that being said, they still have to grant Kyle Larson a waiver. I don't think they have a choice. They might then tweak the rules for next year, establish a new precedent that NASCAR must take priority. But for the here and now, they have to grant Kyle Larson a playoff waiver. The damage that would be done otherwise would be massive. If they strip Larson of his playoff eligibility, suddenly one of the most popular drivers is effectively out of contention in June. Good luck explaining to the casual fan how perhaps the most successful driver this season isn't eligible for the playoffs. That's not confusing at all. Fans will be furious. Some fans may not buy tickets later this year, upsetting track owners and promoters. Some fans won't tune in to watch, which will upset NBC. NASCAR's frustration is entirely justified here, but their hands are tied. Not granting Larson a waiver would be a horrible PR look and would have long-term negative business ramifications. I hope that by the end of this week, they've reached a conclusion. And the conclusion should be Kyle Larson maintains his playoff eligibility, will grant him a waiver, but going forward, perhaps we will hold teams and drivers to a much more strict standard. Would that be fair to every other team and driver? No, maybe not. But Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports put NASCAR in a very difficult position. They did. I understand NASCAR feeling the need to regain some control, some authority. Fingers crossed, NASCAR hopefully comes to the right decision later this week. Let's change the subject though. It's now time for the latest edition of my Out of the Groove Power Rankings. Another week in the books means more changes made to my top 10. 2 quick honorable mentions. Ryan Blaney. I know he was fast, but over his last 7 points races, his average finish is 24th. The speed is pretty good, but the team needs to execute better. My second honorable mention is Chris Buescher. 30th, 23rd, 14th, his last 3 points finishes. Now you got to put an asterisk next to that 30th at Darlington to be fair. I showed you that playoff grid earlier. Right now, Chris Buescher is clinging to that final playoff spot on points. Let's get to number 10, Alex Bowman. Unfortunately, his top 10 streak went out with a whimper this weekend at Gateway, but I'll cut him some slack. Hendrick Motorsports has not historically run well at St. Louis, and Alex Bowman said on social media afterwards that he battled brake issues all afternoon. Bowman is still hanging on to a top 10 spot in the regular season standings. Gotta respect the recent consistency. I'll keep Alex Bowman in the 10 slot. Moving up one spot this week into the number 9 position is Ty Gibbs. I just raved about his extremely impressive sophomore season, an 11.9 average finish. He's been good lately. 11th at Gateway is solid, but he was 6th and 2nd the 2 points races before that. Gibbs had a few rough weeks in a row, but he's bounced back in a big way. That's tough for a veteran to do, let alone a 21-year-old. I'm really impressed with Ty Gibbs this year. Moving up to the number 8 position, welcome back into my top 10, Christopher Bell. I wasn't willing to give him the spot after Charlotte, even though he did win. It was a rain-shortened race, okay. He didn't win at Gateway, but he clearly had the fastest car until engine issues in the closing laps. He still won the first 2 stages. He's collected 9 playoff points in the last 2 weeks. He still finished inside the top 10 at Gateway, held on. It's safe to say Christopher Bell loves the flat ovals, and lucky for him, the final 2 races of the playoffs in the fall are flat ovals. Christopher Bell at 8. Talked about this guy earlier, but Brad Keselowski in the number 7 spot. His last 3 finishes, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That's pretty good. Keselowski is now tied with Denny Hamlin for the most top 5s this season. He's got that win at Darlington in his back pocket. Brad has been reminding us all how good he is. Loose wheel early in the race at Gateway, went to the back of the pack, and still finished 3rd. Shout out to crew chief Matt McCall, played the right strategy, but Brad Keselowski, the veteran driver, the championship driver he is, has made a huge difference this season as well. He looks like his old Penske self. Brad Keselowski at 7. At number 6, and maybe this is too low for this guy, we'll have to reassess here in a couple weeks, but I've got Tyler Reddick still in the 6th spot. Back-to-back top 5 finishes. He is 6th in the regular season standings. I feel like Reddick's top speed is greater than a couple of the drivers we're about to talk about, but he's often too inconsistent. That pit crew, for example, I don't know, it gives me some concern. Ahead of Tyler Reddick in the number 5 spot, I have Martin Truex Jr. See, Truex has not been good lately. 3 straight finishes outside the top 10, but don't let that fool you. The speed, I think, is still there. I think he had a top 5 car at Gateway until he had a flat tire. Just a bad deal, a fluke, bad luck. Unfortunately, that's been the story for Truex really going back to the playoffs last year. Something always seems to derail him. But I still like the speed. I don't love it, but I like the speed. The speed is fairly consistent. That's why I still have Truex 5th. He is still top 5 in the regular season standings after all. Gotta show him some respect. Moving up to the 4 spot this week is Chase Elliott. What can I say? I love consistency. He has 9 straight top 15 finishes. Chase Elliott has moved up to 3rd in the regular season standings. He's got that win at Texas. He was okay at Gateway, finished 13th, but we know Hendrick struggles there, and Chase hasn't raced there in 2 years. So with that all being considered, Elliott was able to move up a spot in the standings. He moves up a spot in my power rankings to the number 4 position. My top 3 has not changed this week. William Byron still holds on to the 3rd spot. Again, not an impressive showing at Gateway, finished 15th. Another quiet day for a Hendrick driver, but before Gateway, he'd finished 6th and 3rd the last couple of races. Byron's been good. He's still got those 3 wins, tied for the most top 10s in the series. And recently, he started to rack up more stage points. At Charlotte, he even got his first stage win of the season. That's important. Good to see that progress. William Byron holds on to the 3 spot. I still have Kyle Larson at number 2. He was involved in that crash with Kyle Busch with about 100 laps to go, yet managed to recover and finish 10th. He still scored a top 10. Kyle Larson, very talented. Cliff Daniels, unfazed by adversity. Most laps led all year, most stage points collected, most stage wins, and he missed the Coke 600, left all those points on the table. Kyle Larson at 2, but I gotta give Denny Hamlin the number 1 spot yet again. I love consistency, and no one has been more consistent the past month than Denny Hamlin. 5 straight top 5 finishes. He too has 3 wins on the season, tied for the most. I mentioned earlier, he's tied with Keselowski for the most top 5, second most laps led. Denny Hamlin is right there every single week. You can always count on the 11. I like that. Denny Hamlin at 1. There you go. My top 10 after Gateway. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with any of my placements. This was a tough week to judge. I wrote down my top 10 and then I had to spend the next hour trying to convince myself that my top 10 made sense. So I'm sure it's very open to criticism. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. That's going to do it for this episode, folks. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Again, you can check out my post-race recap from Gateway. Link is down in the description below. And a big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters. I really hope we're pretty much done talking about waivers. Lots more interesting stuff to come this week, I'm sure of it. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, folks. Thank you for watching.